Yeah, it could have been somebody.
It could have been somebody.
Instead of a bum.
Instead of a bum.
I didn't mean to make
Which is what it is.
I guess it's on the waterfront. I really didn't, listeners. This is my fault.
I said it before and I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Never fear change. Life is too short for fear. Chase what is desired.
I can do this all day.
Would you mind identifying what you are?
We're the best friends squad. That's what we call ourselves. Sort of like a team.
Welcome to the rodeo. Ladies and gentlemen, please sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride.
This is the way.
I have spoken.
Welcome to the Skiffy and Fanty Show, Torture Cinema.
I hope Morgan Freeman got extra for the eye patch.
I'm Sean.
I'm Paul.
I'm Jen.
And today we are here for our patron-selected film for Torture Cinema, the holiday special, The Nutcracker and the Four Realms from 2018, production company Disney.
Damn you bastards.
You did it, you maniacs! Damn you all to hell!
That's a different movie. Actually, that's two movies.
It is. Anyway, so we got to do this because our patrons at patreon.com/givingfanty selected this film of the films that I offered them, and this is the one they went with. Once more proving that I cannot predict what our patrons will ever vote for, you absolute monsters.
What did you expect them to pick?
I thought at the very least they would be a completist like me and go with the Santa Claus 2, perhaps? But no, they had to go the Nutcracker and the Four Realms because they just thought, oh boy, we needed to do this film for some reason.
Some people like the Santa Claus franchise for some reason.
I don't think that's the reason they chose it, because the second one is especially ridiculous.
So everybody knows, though, that Nutcracker and the Four Realms was terrible. So that's basically...
I don't know if everyone knew that.
I don't know if anybody remembers this film. That's the difference.
I did, and I remembered hearing it was awful, but I was like, maybe it's not that bad. And then I watched it. And then our patrons were like, Torture Cinema, Nutcracker and the Four Realms. So I had to watch it again.
I mean, I watched it twice too, Jen. It's fine.
Why? Why would you do that? Why would you willingly do that?
Okay, let's stop right now and not pretend for a moment that this is one of the worst holiday films we have ever had to watch for this show.
Oh, come on!
We did
no,
Ernest
it is
Saves
not.
Christmas.
No.
Come on.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's the worst film at all.
Like, let's be real. Like, look, when we did the live Discord chat on this, it was, at moments pretty painful. But at the same time, if you had to watch this again or watch, I don't know, half of any of the films that we've had to do for the Torture Cinema Holiday Special, you would definitely watch this again, because at least you'd have something pretty to look at compared to, Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, which is one of the most absurd films we've ever watched for this show.
Actually, Santa Claus versus the Martians, I remember fondly at this point, because that's been a long time. However,
oh my God, you were so drunk then.
Yeah, exactly. I will say that I would watch this one again, but I would never, ever listen to it again.
I feel like you could just put on the Nutcracker soundtrack.
Yes, actually, you probably should, because it's a better soundtrack.
Aren't we getting into our likes and dislikes before even talking about what we drunk?
Yes, we are. So...
All right. So, as we always do, we tell you what we're drinking before we give you a synopsis and then go into our likes and dislikes for this film. And so, to start us off, Paul, what type of beverage are you imbibing tonight?
Dihydrogen monoxide. H2O.
Isn't that poisonous? Can't you, if you inhale it, won't you drown?
Yes, it is actually a very dangerous substance. It's so common on Earth, but it is so dangerous. And yet, so refreshing. I'm out of root beer, and I didn't get any this weekend, so... I also pondered getting a 12-pack of maple root beer, but it'd have to be shipped, and I eventually didn't hit the buy button because of the whole credit card thing recently and all that stuff, so... I am root beerless, which is a sad state of affairs for Paul.
Always a bummer.
Well, Jen, what about you? What are you drinking?
I am drinking, actually, a wonderful spiced white tea from Tranquility House. You can find them on Instagram. Go check out our Instagram at Skiffy and Fanty, because I just posted it today. because
such
I
a
got the
nerd.
feminist book club box. That's the only reason I'm mentioning it. I just got my first feminist book club box today, and so I posted about it on Skiffy and Fancy because I was so excited, and it came with tea that is from a Black-owned company because the feminist book club was Afrofuturism this month, so it was Black-owned companies that they purchased from for the box, and I got a copy of Kindred by Octavia Butler, which I am super excited about because I actually have not read this one yet.
Oh,
So.
wow. You are in for a treat. Yeah.
It's good. Okay, well, as for me, I am drinking some O'Reilly's Country Cream peanut butter,
Ooh!
which is okay, but it comes from grass-fed cows, apparently, which I'm sure the cows are very pleased to know that it has been converted into an alcoholic beverage flavored like peanut butter.
So wait, they don't just like pump the peanut butter flavored beer out of the cows?
I don't know if you know what happens when you put a lot of alcohol inside of a mammal, Jen.
Actually, they get super extra drunk if they're a cow because that's a lot of sugar. For
Well,
that
also,
yeast to
they
convert.
probably process it like for hours.
Oh, I know, right? They don't actually get drunk, they just sit there and ferment.
I feel like that's it's just like a field full of cows wandering aimlessly back and forth going "Meow."
I'm just saying they have a second stomach that is full of like sugars.
Yeah.
I just want to point at this point, humans being able to digest alcohol is a good evolutionary adaptation because, the alcohols do provide extra calories and nutrients. So, but not all animals can process alcohol as efficiently.
But we got a movie to talk
We have a
about.
movie.
Yeah.
Yay.
We're just trying to avoid it, or at least Sean is.
No, I'm just having fun, which is normally what we do when we record a podcast, you dick.
Well, poo on you.
I'm so sorry. I will never have fun again. Let me hold on. Let me put Okay. All right,
Put your
guys.
serious hat on.
I guess we got to do this podcast now. So, I guess
Can I give the summary?
Jen, I guess, wants to do this summary, and if you could do it with absolutely no significant inflection in your voice, because as Jen wants us to be, we're not allowed to have fun. So do this as the most dull. Basically, do it as the like Ben Stein, that guy.
Okay.
If you can.
Well, I will just say that watching this movie is about as dull as listening to Sean trying to be clever. So, this movie is The Nutcracker and the Four Realms that was for some reason produced by Disney. We're not really sure why, because they took a really good thing, which is the Nutcracker Suite, and then they made it into something a little bit disjointed. On Christmas Eve in Victorian London, Benjamin Stahlbaum gives his children, Louise, Clara, and Fritz, the presents that his now deceased wife, Marie, left for them before she died. Clara receives an egg-shaped device that is locked, and she doesn't have the key. And her mother says, everything you need is inside. But, being a literalist, Clara, unfortunately, totally mistakes that message and decides that she has to get in to that egg. And in her desperation, decides to be a total party pooper at the annual Christmas Eve party at her godfather's house, Drosselmeyer, who is an inventor.
And Morgan Freeman.
And Morgan Freeman.
With an eye patch.
With a patch and an owl. And, like, the coolest party game ever? In reference, he ties a bunch of strings, and each kid follows their string to their presents. So he turns it into a game, and that was really cool. Unfortunately, this is the only time we see Morgan Freeman for the rest of the movie, because so she follows hers into the magical realm, which is the Four Realms, and there she finds the key to this thing. Unfortunately, it is stolen by a dastardly mouse, and in chasing him, she meets the Nutcracker, Captain Philip of the Four Realms. Actually, only 3 realms because the 4th realm has been banished. And it turns out that her mother was the queen of this land. And 3 of the realms are still united, but the 4th realm has been banished, mostly by Keira Knightley, who is the Sugar Plum Fairy with the worst voice in the history of voices. So she finds out that her mother was queen of this realm, but obviously she left because she died. And she has not returned in some time because she's dead. You know, they're very understanding and they're very sad because they love their Queen Marie. So, of course, that means that Clara is princess of the 4 realms. Well, 3 realms plus the banished one, which is the land of amusement, who is run by maybe evil Mother Ginger. And everybody warns her against Mother Ginger, who is evil and has, like, been banished because she tried to take over all the realms at some point, which is unnamed. So she takes a tour of the realm, she's explained the history, she's introduced to this device that her mother invented that turns toys into real people. And our aforementioned awful-voiced Keira Knightley, the Sugar Plum Fairy, is like, we just need the key to open it, to turn it on, so that we can create an army of soldiers to help us defend ourselves against Mother Ginger, who is evil and is going to attack us imminently, even though you clearly just saw that her realm is completely empty.
Except for mice.
And evil clowns.
And about 7 clowns, I think?
It's like
Yeah.
7 demonic hellspawn clowns.
I mean, they're pretty terrifying.
They're
But
horrifying.
also adorable.
No, they're
So,
horrifying.
you know,
No.
she goes to Mother Ginger, fights for the key, gets the key, even though Mother Ginger, like, weirdly enough, is, like, trying to talk to her and is very sad that her mother died. But she also has terrifying demon clowns, so, hard to say who to trust. And, like, a mouse king made of mice, also slightly terrifying. It's just, she doesn't come off well. Clara goes back to the castle, gives the key to the terribly voiced Keira Knightley, who turns on the machine and then turns all the soldiers into giant soldiers that will only listen to her directions, and decides to, like, solidify her power because she's scared, because she's queen abandoned her, and blah, 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 blah. And then stuff happens. They all fight back. They join forces with Mother Ginger, who has never been bad at all, and they save the day. And then Clara goes back home and realizes that she's been a dipshit the entire time, apologizes to her father, and they have a final dance. The end.
And then there's the credits.
There's the good movie.
Yeah,
The credits.
Yeah.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah.
That.
Yeah, this film, it made me feel like the second they show us the ballet was the moment I went, why didn't they just do like a Disney-fied version of the ballet? Because it would be the set designs for the ballet and stuff, like that was
Oh my
incredible.
God.
Because they were trying for a Nutcracker realm cinematic universe, of course.
Yeah. Well, not necessarily a cinematic universe, but like they're doing what they're doing with all their other animated features, which is turning it into a live action, like, giant set piece. Which, fine. I think it's failed completely, personally. I don't think.
But they
any
keep
of the
doing it.
movies-
They keep trying it.
They keep doing
they
it,
make money.
and people keep going to it because they do make a ridiculous ton of money, but none of them have actually been good films. I like the idea that Clara is, instead of, like, if they had done it more like this, that her mother's name was Clara, and her dad, which they hint at, her dad is the original Nutcracker. And so I wish they had, like, taken the original story and then extricated it just one generation. I think that could have been really interesting, because that's almost what was being told here. Because we know that Marie is the one who discovered the realms, and so she's the main character in the Nutcracker suite, essentially. But it just, I don't know.
So this is where understanding all of the different adaptations is probably helpful to see what they were trying to do. Because Marie, as you mentioned, is from the original E.T.A. Hoffman piece, The Nutcracker and the Masked King. That is the tale that originally becomes the inspiration for Tchaikovsky's The Nutcracker, which is where the suite and all of that comes from, and there's the ballet and all of that stuff. That character eventually is renamed to Clara in Alexander Dumas's adaptation, which is based on both the Tchaikovsky suite and Hoffman's original piece. And so in this, what they did is they said, okay, so we're going to make Clara the daughter of Marie, because then it becomes...
So that is what they were essentially trying for.
Correct.
Is what I just said, but unfortunately, it just somehow manages to not work at all. this movie kind of really fails because it ends up being so much about the spectacle that it's like when we talked about The Wrinkle in Time, that's essentially what this movie did too. It's a movie that's, because it decided to focus on the spectacle, totally lost sight of the story and the characters.
I would argue even worse than A Wrinkle in Time, because A Wrinkle in Time does spend a little bit of time, it does spend a little bit of time with its character dynamics, because there are some very, like, strong and actually well-earned emotional moments between the father and daughter in that piece, right? And the characters are pretty well established, right? So when we see...
Whereas this one...
It doesn't. This one lacks... I mean, keep in mind, the only real characters here is our main character, Clara, and Philip, and then villains. And even then, only villain who really gets much time is Keira Knightley. And so we don't get almost any character development for pretty much anyone. The only one who has really an arc here is probably Clara. You could make an argument for Philip. He kind of has an arc, but there's not enough.
They hand wave in the direction of an arc, but it doesn't quite get there.
Yes, exactly.
Well, that is going to be our cue to go to Paul. We're going to start with likes, Paul. Paul, what is your...
Don't take my
like.
Don't
take Jen's like. Take it.
I'm probably going to take the obvious like here, because we've already been talking about it in this long preamble to the likes and dislikes, and that is the visual spectacle of this movie. It starts off a little bit on uneven ground, as very much as like a Harry Potter pastiche. I mean, the flying owl, the Victorian street and the Victorian Christmas looks something like out of a 19th century version of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. So we start off to there. We get a nice traditional Christmas look at Clara's family, and then we go to the wonders that is Drosselmeyer's house and his invention workshop with all these toys and gadgets and inventions. The fun of the kids running around playing with the threads, and then when Clara goes through the threads into Narnia, I mean the four realms, it's a wondrous land. Even the lousy stinking fourth realm, the former realm of joy, is still visually interesting to look at. And we mentioned before the ballet, the ballet piece in the middle of the film, as Clara finds out what her mother's had been doing, and how her mother created and developed this realm. And we see that through a ballet adaptation. It is a spectacle. I mean, yes, this movie is terrible on characters and character drawings, and I wanted to plug my ears every time Clara opened her mouth for most of this movie, but just to watch this on the screen was a delight. It's well lit. You can see things. It has good use of color. It's not a desaturated mess. Maybe it has a tiny bit extra orange and blue, but that's kind of Hollywood. Hollywood loves to use that orange and blue action. But the movie actually uses it well and actually flips things so that sometimes the orange dominates, sometimes the blue dominates. So it even actually engages with that classic, sometimes overused stereotype of visual spectacle well. And I enjoyed watching this film. I didn't enjoy listening to the characters. I enjoyed the music, but I really enjoyed watching this film and seeing what were they going to throw next as far as on the screen was what kept me through watching through this movie. Like, what am I going to see next? And that goes all the way through to the credits, as we discussed before.
Yeah, I 100% agree. That was my experience, my first time watching, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, visually, this film is incredible. I mean, it really is incredible. It is some of the best visual work I've ever seen. I don't know what else to say. I mean, like, even the Mother Ginger's
her circus nightmare world is visually arresting.
And there's a lot of, like, I mean, there's obviously CG in a lot of the places, but they use a lot of practical effects in some really extraordinary ways.
They use enough practical effects that it doesn't look like it's an over CGI'd monstrosity.
It really doesn't. Mm-hmm. That's what's amazing about this is, like,
there's some solidity to it.
Yeah, there's moments when it's like, okay, that's clearly CG, but then there's a lot of moments where you're just like, I really can't tell, and I'm not gonna bother trying to tell because I'm, like, immersed visually, like I'm in the moment. And I think that's really one of those things that probably a lot of Joe Johnston sort of helped with a little bit in his doing the reshoots, because I think he worked on this for about a month. And he probably really helped to solidify that, because he has done work on things like Jurassic Park, which, very expertly moves between, the CG and the practical effect. I mean, Jurassic Park is still one of the most terrifying movies that I've ever seen in my entire life. And it still scares the shit out of me. That T-Rex head is terrifying. And this film does that a lot. It blends those special effects with practical effects in ways that just are visually arresting. And I think, Paul, you're straight on the money. And we've said this already, kind of, which is like, if you just turn off everything but the soundtrack and you just visually watch this, even as like a silent film, it's just infinitely, immediately better, because you're not paying attention to like the story as it's narrated to us. You're just paying attention to the visual story. As a visual story, it almost works.
Yeah, just music.
Just music and go for it.
And scenery and costumes.
God, it would be so
the costumes.
good.
I mean, the owl zooming through London at the beginning, flying
so
off from the
good.
castle and zooming through, and we
yeah.
follow it perfectly. It's well shot.
In a lot of ways, I just wish they had treated this film the way that clearly the directors wanted to treat it, which is just treat it as a successor to Fantasia, but for Christmas time.
Yeah, that would be cool. Can we move on to me?
Fine.
Paul, are you finished?
What's your like, Judd?
So, my like is the dancers. 3, very specifically, that I previously named, which is Misty Copeland, who is one of the most beautiful ballerinas in
She is
the
really
entire
good.
world. She is amazing, like absolutely phenomenal. Sergei Polunin, he did a fantastic job. He's the main dancer that dances for her at the end. Oh, it's very cool. And then at the end, but throughout the movie, we have Charles Lilbuck Riley, who plays the Mouse King, also is the juke dancer, Memphis juke dancer at the end of the movie. That sequence, when we say that the dance sequence at the end of the film was phenomenal,
Yes.
Yeah.
half of the reason it is as phenomenal as it is because of Lil Buck. He's an amazing dancer, and what he performs in every year is actually a version of the Nutcracker suite called, I think it's called Nut Suite or something like that. I can't remember the name of it right now. And he's been doing it for years. It's a Nutcracker suite version where all of the dances from the Nutcracker suite, but in different dance styles, primarily in dance styles that are from the African American community. So part of that is jukin, and Lil Buck is he's really freaking good in it. That part, that last little bit where you have Misty Copeland and Sergei and Lil Buck doing their dances to the Nutcracker suite, just ended up being my absolute favorite part of this film. And it turns out, once I realized that it was Lil Buck in the motion capture for the Mouse King, like, you can really see his body in those pieces. Like, I almost wanted to go back and watch it again, because it's really just interesting how that creature moves. And for those who haven't seen the film and wanted to get spoiled, the Mouse King is actually all the mice in the fourth realm working in conjunction as like a, single body, essentially. And it's both creepy but amazing, because that many mice, I'm sorry, gross. Not my thing. But also really cool visually. Once you know it's Lil Buck doing like the motion capture, I was just like, wow, that's super cool. Super cool. Whoever had the pull to be like, no, we want to see Misty Copeland dance and also Lil Buck jukin', well done for fighting for that part in there, because it's completely different than the rest of this movie. Stylistically, tonally, like, it's just it's a major shift, and it's stunning.
It's way more playful.
Playful, yeah, there's a good word for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a thing that this film, I think, loses a lot.
Oh, it does.
It wants to be a serious movie, and have this really deep meat underneath, the family dynamic and everything. But, like, it loses a lot of the joy and playfulness that this film really needs. We don't get any real representation of the other realms. Like, we get a moment when we kind of go through them. But, like, there's not enough time for any of those characters to really kind of become characters. Only Keira Knightley's character really gets to be anything. And so we don't have a lot of the joy of discovery. It's like Narnia, but like without having fucking Liam Neeson as Aslan. Like that's what it's like watching this film, it's just sad.
And Keira Knightley's no Tilda Swinton. I mean, she tries, but she's no Tilda Swinton.
Right, but there's like joy, right? Because like when we get to Narnia, the first thing that they basically meet, well, first technically is Mr. Tumnus, who is adorable because it's a young James McAvoy.
Best.
Right. Absolutely adorable. And then he betrays her. And so it shifts from this like really cool whimsicalness to darkness. And then when the others come, right, they meet the Beavers, who are like these British, like husband and wife who like kind of snipe at each other, but in like a playful, loving way. And it's really adorable and cute. And there's all of this joy and wonder of discovery. And then there's darkness again. This film is like, it's dark. Everything's bad. Little glimmers of hope. Like, ooh, you should find some ropes. Isn't that cool? And then like, we're in like a crazy world where there's like an evil Mother Ginger and mice who have bubonic plague are gonna ruin your day. Like, that's kind of what we get. And it doesn't feel like it wants to take a moment to say, no, this world is beautiful and wonderful and exciting and fun. And let's have it. Except for the dance sequence, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We barely get to see the other three realms.
At all. It's like one sequence.
It is a brief glimpse, which granted, Clara at this point is like, I actually just want to get my key, thanks. Why are you taking me on this?
She's such
like,
a petulant little shit.
She wants to check out before things even get started.
It is so, it's so bizarre. And so that's why I say it's like everything is in this movie, and yet it's utterly truncated. So like the individual pieces end up like, it's like this weird accordion movie.
Yeah.
Like it's like either too tiny or way too expanded, but almost both at the same time. And it makes no sense.
It doesn't. We're also trashing the film on our likes again.
Oh, God. Sorry. What is your like now that we're an hour into this podcast?
Jesus Christ. Well, look, if I had to say that there's one like, and it's going to be a sappy one, and I just don't give two shits, Paul basically already knows what this is that I discovered in the end credits, there is an original song, and that song is sung by Matteo and Andrea Bocelli. It is, Andrea is the opera singer, Italian opera singer, and Matteo is his son, who apparently also is a singer, and they sing this duet called Fall on Me, an original piece written for this particular film.
Oh, that's at the very end,
It is in the credits.
At the very end of the credits, yeah.
And
that's gorgeous.
It is a beautiful song. It's very sweet. It gets even sweeter when you realize it's a father and son song sung together, which is just really adorable. But for me, the moment was because my grandma was a huge Bocelli fan. And so the second this song came on, my late grandmother, I just like flood of emotions. And so I actually can't watch these credits without like just crying my fucking eyes out.
Aw, that's so sweet.
So I watched this again today, this whole movie, and I mostly slept through the actual film, but then like the credits, I was just like a wreck about half hour before we started recording, because this song is really sweet and beautiful, and it just, everything about the credits, honestly, is just great. The credits entirely are fantastic. It's got the lovely music.
Disney, release the supercuts.
I just honestly just want, like, the longer version of this credits. Yeah, that's, like, there's a lot of cool visuals to it, not just the dance sequence that Jenna's talking about. There's some, like, other cartoony stuff that's in here that's just really cute. But then this song and the music, it's just, it's beautiful and made me feel a lot of feels. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a genuine like, yeah.
So is mine.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, none of this, like,
genuine likes.
Like, nobody from the Andre Bocelli Foundation was, like, represented here or whatever.
They're not donating to the Skippy and Fancy show.
Right, we're not sponsored by the
That
Bocelli
said,
Union.
if you want to sponsor us, contact us at skippyandfanty@gmail.com.
Or just become our patron at patreon.com/skippyandfanty.
That's correct.
And then you can vote on the movies at $3 a month, you can vote on the movies, and you can pick the movies we watch for Torture Cinema, including this turkey.
What's really funny is that, like, this whole film, we've been treating it like an at the movies. Like, we have not done, like, we've done, like, 4 jokes this entire fucking time, and it's absolutely ridiculous, the lack of humor that is in this. So, I am going to request that when we shift to dislikes, there must be an absolutely massive amount of sarcasm and puns and other kinds of absurd jokingness, because this cannot be this serious.
we need more levity.
Okay, we will do our best. I promise that. Well, mine is just going to be pure visceral hatred, but you know.
Wait,
I'll try to make it like as light as airy as
we can
possible.
stop now because we've already trashed the film. There's what's left?
1 hour podcast.
What's
and
left?
Cut. We're done. What are our dislikes? Just listen to the rest
What's
of the
left at
podcast.
this point? We've ripped everything.
That's actually that's a good point. Paul, what is your dislike?
Okay, I'm gonna go this from an oblique approach, and maybe not the dislike you think I'm going to go for. I disliked, drumroll please, Clara's mom.
She's not even in
Marie.
the movie except one moment.
She is not in the movie, but she is the worst. Let us review. So Clara's mom is an inventress. Apparently, according to Drosselmeyer, the best inventor he ever knew. She finds / invents / creates the 4 realms. I'm not quite sure how that worked. I mean, she clearly made the thing that turns things to life, and vice versa, as Keira Knightley's Sugar Plum Fairy gleefully points out. But let's review. Okay, so we didn't mention in this movie, it's important for readers to know, and I wondered at the time as we were live doing this, like how time worked in this thing. It apparently is timey-wimey inside of the realms. Time in the real world, which we do see a view into the real world at one point, is much slower than inside the realm. So you can spend a fair amount of time in the realms, and it only be minutes or hours in the real world. So there's a temple discontinuity. So she spent lots of time here as the queen, doing things, building this realm. That's all great. And she never shared it with her children. Her children would have ate this up with a spoon. I mean, we didn't even mention the other 2 kids because they're ciphers in this movie, which is a real shame because maybe they stripped out all that family stuff in their race for power and glory. I don't know. I mean, Felix and I think it's Rachel would have loved this place. I mean, Felix would have loved the soldiers and the army and all that stuff, and Rachel would have loved the dresses and the dancing and the ballet. And of course, Clara would loved all the inventions. And the mother never thinks to ever share this with her children. A place where time is slowed down so she could take her children in. I mean, maybe the father's a bit of a stick in the mud and you don't want to tell him. That's fine. You take the kids with you on a day's outing into this realm. It would be magical. It would be wonderful. And she doesn't do it. She leaves this as a thing for Clara to discover, and only Clara to discover, leaving out the poor other 2 kids. That's playing real favoritism. It's even stung in the tail when Drosselmeyer says, "Oh, your mother's best invention was you." What about the other 2 kids? This mother is a terrible parent. She invented, found, created this wonderful place for children, almost designed for children, and she doesn't share it with them till she's dead. Bad parenting.
And only one of them.
And only one of them at
because
that.
apparently she totally has a favorite. And I'm sorry. That's just kind of crappy.
It is more than a little crappy. It is very crappy.
There's poor Felix going, "Who's gonna dance with me?" And nobody answers him.
Nobody answers him. So
Fitz, that's not Felix.
Oh, is it Fitz? I thought it was Felix. Sorry.
it's Fitz, not Felix. I'm sorry. I apologize because he's such a cipher in Fritz, not Fitz. Fritz. He's such a cipher in this film.
Fitz. Who cares what his
It's not Rachel's
terrible name
Louise.
is.
Fritz and Louise are such ciphers, not given it enough. I mean, really, if you...
I just want to note, the fact that we can't even remember what their fucking names are says a lot about how important they are to this story.
That's how they've always been in the Nutcracker Suite story, so it's like, it makes sense that we're totally forgetting them, but...
This movie could be improved on that axis by removing them entirely as characters. Make Clara an only child.
Yes.
Yeah.
That will really solve that problem.
I mean, that certainly solves the other problem that Clara is a little troll throughout this entire thing.
She's kind of a brat. Yeah.
Yes, I didn't even get that as my dislike, because I left that one as the opening. I left that one for other people, but I wanted to focus on how badly her mother handles everything, even though she's not in the movie at all.
It's so bizarre. I don't understand. Like, I know Jeff was with us for the Discord live chat, which everybody who's a $3 or up patron can do. With you can join us to talk about these films. And Jeff was going, the mother never told her kids any of this? She just like kept this whole, like, she invented like an entire world and she kept this away from her kids? Why? What's the incentive? Why did she keep it? And it was apparently some secret thing so she could give her a magic frickin' singing egg.
I mean, Drosselmeyer knew.
Not to mention her husband, who may very well have been a nutcracker.
Maybe he was. We don't even know what his story is. He's just a traumatized man who's trying to keep up appearances like he's fine, even though he's obviously utterly devastated. And I love how
Matthew McFadden is Benjamin Stahlbaum.
He's so handsome and sad.
And that's his character. I am handsome and I am sad.
It is his character.
I am sad.
He was brilliant in Pride and Prejudice for a reason.
Right, and like what cracked me up in a messed up way is like later on when Clara goes in with the Sugar Plum Fairy into the clock, right, and she sees that time is different, and she looks at her dad, and her response is not that her dad looks like totally depressed and devastated, which is what he looks like. She goes, he looks lost. And I'm like, no, he's not lost. He's literally like, his whole life has been upended, and you keep like shitting in his face.
The two are not that far off from each other. In her defense, he is lost. He's literally he's figuratively lost.
I mean, he's still lost, but like, I just want Clara to recognize that I'm just asking for Clara to recognize before the end of the movie that her dad is sad.
Like 12.
She's 18 when she's in this movie, so...
Well, she was only supposed to be a 12-year-old character.
Well, it's not my fault that when she went into the realm, she, like, extra-aged or whatever.
Okay, fine. Whatever. My turn!
Fine.
Yes, your turn. What's your dislike, Jen?
My dislike is... I was going to say Keira Knightley, and she technically is, like, the worst thing about this movie. But I'm going to say that, especially in relation to the fact that they spent so much time focusing on Keira Knightley, who granted was probably having fun, and for some reason critics were like, oh, she's so good in this. I'm like, no, she is a hideous caricature of a good character.
I mean, I disagree, but I understand where you're coming from.
Her voice, her motivations for one thing are like, what? No. Okay, just stop.
She's
Just
scared
stop.
and angry and turns the realms into a fascist dictatorship. I was not expecting that in this film, to be honest.
It's interesting. I mean, to say the
America
least.
circa 2020, y'all.
I literally, like, when we're talking about, like, watching this without the sound on, yes, because her voice is awful, and yet at the same time, I'd still have to skip all of the Keira Knightley scenes because her, like, hideous, like, grin thing is scarier than the devil clowns.
Okay,
so,
that's horseshit. Absolute horseshit.
Yeah.
The reason she pisses me off is because they focused on her and therefore did not give the other characters any time to breathe. More specifically, the other two regents of the realms, which was Eugenio Derbez and Richard E. Grant, because they clearly should have had just a little bit more space to breathe because both of them are brilliant. Eugenio Derbez, I'm sorry, he's just so good and delightful and magical. Anyway, my point being that they had these two beautifully costumed, amazing actors, and they were like, yeah, that's cool. We're just gonna not use you for the rest of this movie. We actually don't even need you here, except for, weirdly, the regent of the Four Realms is the one announcing the princess, which I guess, fine. But basically, they're turned into servants. And that was kind of obnoxious. Oh, also the low-key slavery narrative going on with Philip was just kind of uncomfortable. Oh!
Oh,
And
Jesus.
and sorry, last little piece. I happen to love the actor Omid Jolly from The Mummy. He played the guy who ran the prison in The Mummy, the original Mummy.
Oh, right, yes,
Yeah,
that's right.
and he plays one of the guards, along with Jack Whitehall. So Harlequin and Cavalier are their characters, apparently. Not that I ever heard their names.
Jack Whitehall, by the way, in this film because he has been public for years about his love of Disney and has been cut out of Frozen as a one of the trolls. He was cut out of the final production, so I feel like this film was like Disney offering him a olive branch.
I mean, come on. Like, that's just, it's almost a cruel joke. Now, apparently, I don't remember this, but apparently in the Nutcracker suite, there is, like, always, like, two soldiers who are kind of the goofy soldiers, and that's what they play in this movie.
They are.
But it's just, it was me. Why? They did not need to exist at all. Talking about, like, cutting things, that was an extra 10 minutes.
Yeah, this is the thing where this film, it either needs to be a 2-hour film and have those extra minutes be about character stuff so that these characters feel rested, or it has to cut stuff and have it be more visually spectacle and focus on the core story.
Well, yeah, you could cut them and also have the core story. They weren't even part of the spectacle.
Look, what we're getting at is if you want to make this film good, just cut everything but the ballet scenes.
Yes.
Basically, that and the opening sequence where they fly
already.
through London. You have the opening sequence they fly through London, and then the sequences where you fly through all of the magical kingdoms, and then you have the ballet scene, and then you have Mother Ginger's giant tent lady robot, and then you go to the credits. Done.
Or you just go to the credit.
You could just go to the credits. I'm just trying to give the people who actually worked really hard on this movie a little credit.
I know. I mean, and they deserve credit. They did some beautiful work on the costuming and the design.
It's actually, I don't know what it's like to be a person who like works in costume and set design and CG and all of those kinds of things, but it's got to be frustrating when you work your ass off for like a year on some fucking thing and then like the final version of the film is just a shit fest and you're like,
Yeah.
my hands, I have burst all the nerves in my hand. I can't type for the next 6 months.
I don't know. I'm not actually sure, but I think you could probably ask the developers of Cyberpunk 2077.
Oh God, well that's a whole other fiasco.
That's a different trash fire. And a contemporary one.
Anyway, so it's your turn to do your dislike.
Oh, is
I'm
it?
done.
Am I
Yeah.
allowed to talk now?
Yes, you are.
Oh, great. That's really fantastic. I love it when I'm allowed to talk.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jen. I've always needed your permission to talk. When I don't have you around, I just sit around in my house and say nothing.
You have to make at least 2 jokes in this dislike.
No, I'm never done talking. Shut up, Jen. I hate you. If I'm not going with a dislike from something we've already talked about, my dislike is going to have to be Philip. Not
Philip?
the character itself, the concept of the character, or necessarily the actor. My
Okay.
biggest issue with this film is that there are very few people of color in this entire movie. It is a very white film. And to me, it feels a little bit weird that you're one vocalizing black character who, with exception, obviously, there is a black ballet dancer in this. You're one vocalizing black actor / character in this film also happens to be kind of like a lowly guard / servant.
Nutcrackers are very loyal.
They're very loyal, but like that's not what it is that
No,
we're
no,
being
no.
presented.
No.
If it were just that I serve the realm because I am loyal, that would be lovely. But he constantly uses this phrase of I know my place,
Mm-hmm.
which I think he
Yeah.
intends to mean as in like I have a purpose in the world and the purpose is X, which is he just serves at this one post. Also, by the way, one of the most hilarious moments in the entire movie is when he's allowing her to go into the fourth realm, the realm of amusement, and he does all these things with these gears and it's just to lift the little bar.
That was actually adorable and also pointless.
It was, but I wanted more of just the silly whimsy. Like, there's even moments like where I felt like his character could have been great, where he literally turns to the CG mouse, but he turns to the mouse and he goes, while the mouse is yapping at him, he's like, I don't speak rodent.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. He had some really cute moments for sure, but the overall, like I said, and I mentioned it briefly, the overall like low key slave narrative.
it's not really a slave narrative.
Yeah,
He's not a slave.
No,
He's not.
no, he's not. And yet they placed him into the subservient black man, like come here, boy.
He's a servant, right? And it's
uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable, I think, because of the context of the story that we're dealing with. It's like feudal society, and he is a servant, but like almost everybody in the film is technically a servant. But it's the way that he's positioned. He's like the only black guy like in the entire film, and he's positioned in this deeply subservient position.
There are
Where?
there's two, because
Do
you
they
also
talk?
do have Morgan Freeman.
I'm sorry, let me rephrase.
Derbez,
In the Magical Kingdom.
Yes. Eugenio Derbez is Mexican, so it's not like he's the only person of color.
No.
And a lot of the side characters are actually, like if you're looking through the extras cast, there are lots of people of color in the realms. Unfortunately, yes, he is the dominant character of color, and sadly still put into that subservient position. And it's grossly uncomfortable on numerous occasions.
I just think that in order for them to have done this so that it didn't come off that uncomfortable, they just had to not play it as a know your place kind of story, and just more like, no, like I really believe fervently that like my purpose in life is to serve the realm, and that's what I'm doing, and I am loyal, and that's what his defining characteristic is. That just needs to be what the story is, and instead they just do this really uncomfortable stuff with like he knows his place, and like she's a princess so she has to know her place, and it's like this is not it, guys. It's just not. It's dialogue you didn't need to have. Like you could have just told, like, why couldn't he just been like, yeah, it's just a guard, like, you know, I actually just kind of wanted to work out here because I felt like, you know, protecting the bridge was like really important. And also, like, you're ordering me and I have to do it because I serve the realm. But, like, also, Mouse King kind of creepy, you know? Like, let's stop this. Yeah, I will note, really cool moment when the Mouse King and him work together to fight off the giant toy soldiers. Really cool sequence.
Yeah, that's a good sequence.
Yeah, and then they become besties, and it's really adorable. I will also say that Omid Jali is Iranian. British Iranian. So like there are people of color in this. I don't want to suggest that they're not there. I just think that to me it is really hard in this era in particular, when we're increasingly more aware of these things, to watch a film in which a little white girl basically has a black servant. Exactly.
He's not an actual slave.
Yeah.
He is very much a servant, but it's still it's an uncomfortable image that they needed to downplay by not making it so much that he's subservient to her.
Yeah. I mean, that would have been a problem. Like, to me, I would have been uncomfortable with that if it was a white kid, too, because of the way it's framed. But it's especially onerous because it is a black actor. As you say, we're more aware of that. But in general, because of how Hollywood and media treats black characters and black actors, it's just like it's extra damaging to see him placed within that role, and I wish he had had a better manager. I would just like to point out that Sean just demanded of us not 10 minutes ago to be funny.
And we wound up into this serious discussion of sensitivity ratings.
I was being funny the entire time. I don't know why you didn't laugh at anything. I'm sorry. Let me redo my dislike.
It's a really good dislike, and
No. I have to redo it now because I wasn't funny, and you're just very upset if I'm not funny on this show now. So, I just want you to know that I'm really upset because despite years and years of effort on the part of the Crooked Weeping Willow Tree Association, they were unfairly represented in this film. There was an entire forest of them, but they were malnourished. And they were not treated well, and they were not provided SAG cards for their performances in this film, and there is a lawsuit. You can go to www.gofundme.com/weepingwillow lawsuit to actually support their efforts to get compensated for this film. So
Those weren't Weeping Willows, I don't think.
those were Weeping Willows. What are you talking about? They were the same Weeping Willows that were in Harry Potter.
The trees that were in there?
Yeah.
No, those weren't.
Yeah, those are the same ones. They're it's babies. The one that was in Harry Potter had a bunch of babies, and those babies needed jobs, and so they got a job on this one.
That's not what Weeping Willows look like.
Whomping Willows, Weeping Willows, who fucking
Okay,
cares?
if you're
Why are you-
specifying Whomping Willows, that's a totally different thing. But these were not Weeping Willows, everybody. I believe Sean is mistaking the Whomping Willow lawsuit for the Weeping Willow lawsuit, which is totally different and has to do with the fact that the people started cutting off their waterways. And it's just
That's right. If you want to support the Whomping Willow lawsuit, you have to go to www.supportmybullshit.com/Whomping Willow.
Oh boy, maybe I think we should move to grades.
We gotta move to grades. This is the least funny torture cinema we've done for the holidays ever.
Yeah, yep.
This is all because Jen is not funny at all.
No, this is just because this movie brought up some very serious issues and wasn't as light and frothy and our hatred of it as it could have been.
So, Paul, final thoughts and grade go.
I really didn't like the main character. The main character, for the most part, is a whiny brat. The characterization of this movie is lackluster at best and actively awful at worst. I had lots of questions about how this world or universe or movie actually wanted to work. The visual spectacle rescues it somewhat, and without the dialogue, this movie is more than tolerable to watch. It's enjoyable and visual to watch. A movie that's intended to be a movie has to be, and then have a story, characters, and things I can connect to, and not just be images that are flashing on a screen for me to watch. And as much as I like those images do, and the music do not tell a story because the movie isn't designed that way. So this movie is a failure as a movie, which is a sad thing. This movie could have been so much more. It could have been a contender. It could have been somebody. If somebody had actually worked on the characters and thought about some things and fixed the problematic elements with Philip and everything else, I'm annoyed at this movie for that reason. I'm going to be nice and generous to it and just give it. I'm not going to give it a failure. I'll give it a D.
That is a perfectly reasonable grade.
Paul, are you suggesting that this film could have had class?
This film could have been a B or even an A movie if they had actually tried harder. Which is really the hell of this. This thing could have been great, a holiday classic for the ages.
Yeah.
And they failed. I mean, they just like dropped the ball. The touchdown was there and they dropped the ball.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. You're saying it could have been somebody instead of a bum, which is what it is.
Instead of a
so
bum,
let's face it.
which is what this movie is.
Yeah. Jen, final thoughts and grade, go.
Thank you. My final thoughts and grade are exactly what Paul just said. And so is my grade. D.
Oh, are you saying it also could have been a contender?
I'm saying it could have been contender. I mean, the reason we had a serious conversation about this movie was basically that it could have been a contender.
Yeah, it could have been somebody.
It could have been somebody.
Instead of a bum.
Instead of a bum.
I didn't mean to make
Which is
this.
what it is.
I guess it's on the waterfront. I really didn't, listeners. This is my fault.
So yeah, that's it. That's it for me. Deserves a D.
Awesome. Well, great. That leads it to me. Well, look,
Yes.
Everything that's been said has basically been said. This film is just disappointing. You know, it has moments of pure brilliance, but overall, it just flops. And to me, what is most annoying is that it wastes some truly incredible visual work. This film visually, like we're not just saying it. This is some of the best visual work we've ever seen for any film we've ever covered. It is astonishingly good, and it is utterly infuriating that they just botched it in the final version of this film. And so for that reason, I'm giving it a D-. It's not good, and it just feels almost offensive in how much it screwed its opportunity. You know, this film, as Paul would say, could have had class. Could have been a contender. Could have been somebody instead of a bum. Yeah, which is what it is. So, let's face it.
So our average comes out to just under a D.
Yep.
All right, folks. So this is the end of our podcasts for this year, with the exception of possibly a speculative dispatch going up on our Patreon at patreon.com/SkiffyandFanty. So you won't hear from us until late January, because this is when we typically go on a hiatus. So as always, from the Skiffy and Fanty family, have a great happy holidays, whatever you happen to celebrate, however you may be enjoying this time. I know it's unusual times, and a lot of us are isolating. We can't be with our families the way that we'd like. So do the best you can. Zoom with some loved ones, be safe, take care of yourselves, try to find as much joy as you can in these last few weeks of 2020, the nightmare year from hell. Do the best you can, because that's all we got going. Just keep in mind, if you're in the United States, by the time we're back on this show, there will be a new president in the White House. And while that president is not necessarily the one that we all wanted, is infinitely better than the absolute monstrous giant orange marshmallow shit from hell that we currently have. So by the time we get back, we might be just a hair chipper.
Or we might be in the middle of a coup. It could go either way.
Or we could be in a coup. Whichever.
Happy holidays, everyone!
So, Paul, why don't you let folks know where they can find you?
I am Prince Justin, JVS, PRNC, JVSTIN on the internet, which means you can find me on Twitter at Prince Justin. You can find me on Instagram as Prince Justin. I have a website, www.princejustin.com. You can find me podcasting here on SSF Audio. You can find my book reviews here at Nerds of a Feather. I've even written for File 770. You throw a rock on the internet, you probably will hit me eventually. It's easy.
Yeah, but don't throw rocks at Justin.
Don't throw.
Paul.
No, that's actually a
me.
federal crime. You go to prison for at least 13 years.
Yep.
All right, Jen, what about you? Where can folks find you?
Similarly to Paul, except with a different name, I am at Loopdiloo, LOOPDILOU, everywhere that you can find social media accounts, including Twitter, Instagram, my website, and actually probably a bunch of other ones that I just don't remember because there's so many social media sites out there. I don't use any of them, to be clear.
Yeah, perfect. As for me, you can find me at SeanDuke.net or at SeanDuke at the Twitters. Other than that, you can follow me at The Joy Factory at patreon.com/The Joy Factory, which is my exactly what it sounds like. It's just all about joy and geekdom. So beyond that, though, Skiffy and Fanty stuff. If you want to follow us, as always, please leave us reviews. If you want to leave us a present for the holidays, reviewing on iTunes is like the number one thing you could do for us. It would help a lot. So please go do that. Other tan that, skiffyandfanty.com and skiffyandfanty.com/newsletter for our website and newsletter. You can also find us at Instagram at Skiffy and Fanty, Twitter at Skiffy and Fanty, Facebook Skiffy and Fanty, and also we have a Patreon, which we've probably mentioned like 37 times this episode, patreon.com/skiffyandfanty. So if you want to support us, get involved in things, get in on the excitement of voting in Torture Cinema polls, or even join us to discuss the film while we watch it in real time, those are all things you can do on our Patreon, as well as getting access to the Speculative Dispatch, which is our monthly extra show that we do. Sometimes it's Jen, sometimes it's other people. So yeah.
I guess that's all she wrote.
That's definitely all she wrote. Certainly wrote a lot more than this film did. Happy holidays, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking with us through this year. We appreciate you so much. It's been a hell of a year. We've been trying to do our best to just bring at least a little bit of fun and joy and excitement and geekdom into everybody's lives. Thanks, Paul and Jen, for being here for this and being in various other shows throughout the year as well. You both are lovely.
Yeah, sure, you betcha.
You're something, I guess.
Fuck off. I hate you.
There's a reason we've been friends for a decade. A decade!
It's a long time to be stuck with a Jen.
It's a really long time to be stuck with a Sean. And actually, I've been stuck with a Sean for a combined 30 years at this point.
I know, because your husband and I share the same first name.
Yeah, it's the worst.
It is the worst. It's great that we don't look alike, because it would be super confusing if we were both named Sean and looked exactly the same.
That would just be gross and creepy. I just need you to stop now. Happy holidays, everybody. We love you.
Stay frosty.
And on that note, awkward ending and scene. If you would like to support this podcast, you can do so at patreon.com/SkiffyandFanty. You can also find us on our website, skiffyandfanty.com, and on Twitter at skiffyandfanty. If you'd like to send us an email, you can do so at skiffyandfanty@gmail.com. The music for this episode comes from Sphere by Creo. You can find out more about their music at freemusicarchive.org.